Martin Celebrity Roast, coming to you from the MGM Grand Hotel in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beautiful Ziegfeld Room, tonight's star-studded roast has brought together some of the world's greatest entertainers. They've come from all over the world to be here tonight, here in Las Vegas, in person.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Dean Martin Comedy Hour presents a special one-hour roast with tonight's guests, Gene Kelly, Ed Knight, Audrey Meadows, Foster Brooks, Leo DeRocher, Pat Henry, Fritz Little, John Rice III, Mark Russell, Nipsey Russell, Mort Saul, Senator Lowell Weicker, your roastmaster, Dean Martin, and tonight's very special Man of the Week, Senator Hubert Humphrey.
Tonight we salute the great Democrat from the state of Minnesota, Senator Hubert Humphrey, a man who has spent a lifetime in politics with an unblemished record. He never took a bribe, never spied on his opponents, or committed any crime, which is why he's here tonight and not in the White House. It's true, Hubert's never been involved in a scandal. In 1968, when he was running for the presidency, the Republicans bugged Humphrey's bedroom. When they played back the tapes, they fell asleep. Even as a boy working in his father's drugstore in Minnesota, he would never sell anybody Tums because Tums spelled backwards is smut. Oh, boy, from the minute Hubert was born, he was destined for politics. The doctor picked him up, slapped him, and Hubert said, "I'm pleased as punch to be here." And he hasn't shut his mouth since. In 1961, Hubert became the House Whip. But the police found out about the house and closed it. Every time Pat Henry comes on our show, he does better and better. As a matter of fact, the last time he was on the show, the ushers only caught 3 people sleeping. He's going to get it right this time. A real great humorist, Mr. Pat Henry.
Senator Humphrey, ladies and gentlemen, I usually don't get on this late in the program. But, Senator, it's an honor to be on the same dais with you because I just got back from Washington, and it's a pleasure to talk into a microphone you could see, you know? And, Senator, I thought you might like to know that tonight, after the show, your speech goes right into the paper shredder anyhow. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be one of Hubert Humphrey's biggest fans. And I know he's a very dedicated man. For 30 years in Washington, he's done the work of 2 men, Laurel and Hardy. And Senator's true. He's always felt that politics is a lot like sex. You don't have to be good at it to enjoy it. Senator Humphrey's been around Washington, D.C. for over 30 years. He knows that politics has its ups and downs. Let's face it, one week you're on the cover of Time, the next week you're doing it. And I've got a real flash for you folks. I heard through the grapevine that once again, Hubert Humphrey is preparing to run for president. He's calling it Preparation H. Remember this, Senator. If you decide to run, I'm betting on you, providing Willie Shoemaker rides you.
Pat's a real funny man. I'll see you up in Las Vegas. Yeah, I'll be opening at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas on December 5th. It's brand new, and it's the most beautiful hotel in the world. What I like about it is that it's got 31 bars, and they're all within staggering distance of each other. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nipsey Russell.
If the world is seeking a leader, wise, courageous, and true, remember any man who can say he is boss in his home will lie about other things too. I have no wish to disparage our guest of honor, Hubert Humphrey. Some formidable tribulations. Do you know that his wife has not spoken to him in more than a year? They're not angry, she just doesn't want to interrupt him. We are not loath to concede that the man is at times a bit verbose, but did you ever analyze the profundity of his observations? I heard him speak. He said, we must not dissipate our energies chasing happiness. He said, we must learn to triumph over despair. I said, Senator, what is despair? He said, despair is seeing your lawyer go to jail. He said, despair is seeing your karate instructor get beat up by a hairdresser. He said, despair is having somebody steal your watchdog. He said, despair is seeing your psychiatrist coming out of a fortune teller's tent. He said, despair is having the girl say yes and the desk clerk at the motel say no. It is not a tranquil circumstance being a senator. I was talking about it to our new civic leader. You've got to meet him. He's a truly honest man, held in the loftiest esteem by everybody in the black neighborhood. His name is Amos Carr. He deals in reconditioned plumbing supplies. We call him Honest Carr, the used John dealer. He said Hubert Humphrey is a true liberal. Now, what is a liberal? A liberal is a foe to male chauvinism. He believes that women are equal and that those who are not equal should wear a corrective bra. So I say to you, Senator, don't let failure defeat you. Don't bow your head in shame. If you can't succeed, be smart enough to find somebody else to blame.
Ladies and gentlemen, a true talent and a great guy, Mr. Gene Kelly.
Thank you very much, Dean. It has been said that the Vice President of the United States is nothing but a figurehead, a useless and meaningless job. But I say that's not so. And to prove my point, I went to Senator Humphrey's lovely wife, Muriel, and I asked her about the senator's activities when he was vice president under Lyndon Johnson. She even gave me her husband's personal diary that he kept when he was VP. And I'm going to read a page, just a little page out of that diary describing a typical day in the life of Vice President Humphrey. Now, let's see, at 2 o'clock, here we are, 6:30 a.m. Woke up and had breakfast with a little woman. 7 o'clock, returned home to the wife. 7:30, collected my thoughts. 7:31, took nap from mental strain. 8:15, arrived at the White House. 8:20, showed ID to security guard. He didn't recognize me, no. 2 o'clock, spoke to Women's League of Voters denouncing pornography. 3 o'clock, met with Ed Muskie at the Pussycat Theater. At 10 o'clock, arrived home and turned on the Dean Martin Comedy Hour, my favorite program. I admire Dean because he's the only man in America who works less for his money than I do.
Our next guest is one of the immortals of baseball. His courtesy and gentleness in the ballpark is a legend, like the one about the earth being flat. Ladies and gentlemen, a great player and a great manager, Mr. Leo DeRoche.
Thank you, Dean. Well, Hubert Humphrey has always been a good loser. In Hubie's case, it was really tough being a good loser because the guy that won turned out to be such a sore winner. But Hubert, look at it this way. You finally ended up with a majority. The world is full of losers. And not just in sports and politics. What is a loser? A loser is a guy, if it was raining soup, he'd be standing there with a fork. A loser is a guy who traded in his Etzel for a Corvair. A guy who goes to a massage parlor and really ends up with a massage. A loser is a guy who opens a bar in Watts and calls it Whitey's Place. A guy who goes to see Deep Throat and gets a seat behind Wilt Chamberlain. A loser is a guy whose doctor finds out that you've been fooling around with his wife just as he's about to give you a vasectomy. A loser is a married man who is checking out of a motel with a secretary and discovers the desk clerk is Alan Fudd, and he's been on candid camera. A long time ago, I said that nice guys finish last. Well, listen, Hubie, if you ever decide to run again, maybe I can give you some lessons on how to be a nasty winner from Charlie Finley.
Our next speaker is Miss Audrey Meadows. You know, Audrey looks a lot like her sister Jane Meadows. And many people have trouble telling them apart. In fact, I understand Audrey has a tattoo on her chest that reads, "Stop, Steve, I'm Audrey." Ladies and gentlemen, the lovely and talented Audrey Meadows.
Thank you, Dean. You know, I've always been a great admirer of Senator Humphrey, and I've really known him quite well over the years. Though I have not seen him too much lately in Washington as I used to, since he changed his Senate office. In fact, I understand that he moved his desk into the washroom. He claimed it was the only place where the senators knew what they were doing. Humphrey has always had those kind of new and innovative ideas. And inasmuch as we're honoring him tonight, I think it would be well to recall a few of his outstanding legislative contributions. For instance, he was the first senator to introduce a bill making the United States a member nation in the International House of Pancakes. Anyway, in later years, when he was on the farm, he hurt himself lifting a bale of hay, and he immediately came out for agricultural support. And recently, after celebrating his 35th wedding anniversary, his wife Muriel urged him to do something about the energy crisis. I'd like to tell you sincerely how much I really admire this man. Hubert is really all heart. Well, maybe only 20% heart. I think the rest of it is hamburger helper.
The man who has gotten more mileage out of a sweater than Lana Turner, Mr. Mort Saul.
Senator Weicker, Senator Humphrey. A week from tonight on NBC, there'll be a special starring Senator Weicker called their awards. They're called the Most Corrupt Administration in History Awards. And the nominees are the Warren G. Harding administration and the Nixon administration. May I have the envelope, please? What's in the envelope? $173,000. For E. Howard Hunt. At any rate, Senator Humphrey, as I recall, one of the important things is that you've maintained the consistency, which I've always admired, of party unity. This goes all the way back, for those of you who recall, a great sense of history, back to the Eisenhower administration. I remember when Hubert Humphrey was the only man in the Senate who stood up and asked that integration be forcefully brought about by General Eisenhower, who was then president, going to Arkansas and taking a black girl by the hand and leading her into one of the schools. General Eisenhower called in Senator Humphrey and said, there's a problem here of policy. I don't know whether or not to use an overlapping grip. You may recall that. There was a problem at the time. At any rate, to return to my point, when he worked for the late Lyndon Johnson, Senator Humphrey, one of his jobs was to be greeter at the White House. You may recall he'd meet people at the door, and he'd say such things as, appropriate things, such as, it certainly is a beautiful day, just as President Johnson promised. You remember that? And then, as Senator Humphrey has had some differences with President Nixon, although, as I say, he's interested in unity in both parties. And President Nixon, of course, Senator Humphrey was interested when he ran for the presidency in our economy, which we're still interested in. And he sent Richard Nixon a sign for his desk, which reads, "The half a buck stops here." At least that's what it was this morning. It's about 44 cents as of now. We're bringing it up to date. And, of course, President Nixon stood on his platform, which was to get the prisoners out. That was the big thing. And as you know, he got two out, Jimmy Hoffa and Bobby Baker. I wore a bracelet for Hoffa. A lot of Dean thought I had arthritis. One day I was talking to Senator Humphrey in Washington in his office when he was vice president, and he said to me, I asked him about Richard Nixon. I said, what's he really like? I mean, is it true, the rumors we've heard? He said, well, what have you heard? I said, well, I understood he was born in Whittier, California in 60 years ago in a log cabin in a blue suit. It was considered a medical miracle 60 years ago. And he said, no, that's not realistic, Senator Humphrey. He said, Richard Nixon is the kind of man, in his words, who, if you were drowning 20 feet from shore, would throw you a 15-foot rope. And then Henry Kissinger would go on the three networks and point out that Richard Nixon had met you more than halfway.
You really think I read those cards? Yes, I memorized all that. I don't read it. This is all memorized. Like our next guest is one of the stars of Mary Tyler Moore's show. See, I don't look at the cards at all. We invited Ted here because he is a politically activist and a humanitarian. I don't need those cards. Only last night he spoke at a dinner where they raised money to buy a snowplow for the city of Beverly Hills. Ladies and gentlemen, a most talented man, Mr. Ted Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. You know, in my business, I'm often called upon to speak about someone or something I know nothing about. And that happens to be the case tonight. To tell you the truth, though, I'm a little surprised to see Hubert Humphrey here. They told me it was going to be somebody important. Just shows you how they cross wires on you. Last time I appeared, what I thought was going to be a testimonial for a politician, it turned out to be a telethon for irregularity. However, it doesn't always work out that way. In view of this, I've written a speech that I can deliver anywhere, anytime, to any group. It's so general, it almost sounds as though I know what I'm talking about. Hey, I can do Burt Lancaster. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Or vice versa, as the case may be. In lieu of the regular speaker who was unable to be with you due to not being here, I'd like to say a few words before I go any further. Those of you who are here tonight will remember how well the last occasion went over. I wasn't here myself, so I don't remember, but I really understand that a lot of you weren't here tonight, were there that night and remember, and vice versa. You were extremely fortunate, I might add, in your choice of an honored guest. I know of no other man or woman who could fill his seat the way he does, or she does, or vice versa. I'm referring, of course, to his considerable background. Now, if there was a person with a big foundation for whatever it is he does, he has it. But he wasn't always content to sit upon his aspirations. The person you're honoring is more than just a simple cog, believe me. He is the gear that drives the machine, the big nut behind the wheel. I could tell you about his past, but that would be too easy. I could tell you about his future, but that would be too difficult. However, I don't want to bore you tonight. That's his job. Thank you for inviting me. Good night or good afternoon, as the case may be.
I tried to follow what he said, but I don't know what he said.
He understood every word.
I know, he did, yes. Here to pay his respects to Senator Humphrey is a young man whose analysis of the political scene is truly hilarious. For those of you who are not subscribers to the Washington Post, here's a fellow who'll bring you up to date on Washington today. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Shoreham Hotel in Washington, where he entertains nightly, Mr. Mark Russell.
Thank you, Dean. It's a privilege to be here in honor of the distinguished senator. I believe the real Hubert Humphrey is best illustrated by an incident which took place during the 1968 campaign. It was during a speech, and an angry spectator threw a tomato at him while he was speaking. Well, as the tomato struck him, Hubert, the old pro, didn't bat an eye. He merely ad-libbed, "Speaking of agriculture..." Yes, Hubert Humphrey, symbol of the politics of joy. Yes, H-H-H, that's ho-ho-ho. From the very beginning, our hero was at the forefront of the civil rights movement. His was the first drugstore in Huron, South Dakota to sell Uncle Ben's rice. Mr. Humphrey's talents as a pharmacist were put to good use as vice president, when Lyndon Johnson turned to him one day and said, "Hubert, make me a malted." He received a great deal of publicity in 1959, you may recall, when he had an 8-hour conversation in the Kremlin with Nikita Khrushchev. Khrushchev asked Hubert how he was, and he never got in another word. Known affectionately as the mouth that roars, Hubert Humphrey visited Rome on one occasion and spoke at the Vatican for 3 hours to a statue of Pope Pius. Always the optimist, he was not depressed in '68 when he lost the White House, nor was he depressed when he lost the vice presidency, but he was depressed when he lost Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis. I know we're all familiar how Senator Humphrey was the target of some of the Watergate dirty tricks activity. There was an alleged attempt to make him appear guilty of engaging in illicit sex. Are they kidding? Hubert to talk all through it, for heaven's sake. Well, they told him about it. He said, that would be libel. Mrs. Humphrey said, that'd be a miracle. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to introduce one of the most brilliant impressionists in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the man of 1,000 voices, Mr. Rich Little.
Thank you, Dean. My fellow Americans, I'm just as punched as pleased to be here tonight. I was saying to my wife, Muriel, just the other day, I said, Muriel, and she said, that's right. And I knew it was her because I never forget a face. I just made that up. Is he laughing? Take a look. But you know, my fellow Americans, I've been doing a number of things since I ran for president of the United States. I've been touring all across this great country making speeches. Because, my fellow Americans, I see a country where there is no poverty, no bigotry, and no unemployment. I see a country where there is clean air and clean water. I see Switzerland. But you know, I was asked just the other day if I would pose in the centerfold of Playgirl magazine. That's true. I was quite honored at first, and then after thinking it over, I declined it because I felt that enough government secrets had already been exposed. But you know, my fellow Americans, in closing, as well as being a United States Senator, I have a wonderful new job now, and I'm very pleased about it. I'm working for the cartoon division of Warner Brothers. It's a very simple job that I have. All I do at the end of the cartoon is come out and say, that's all, folks.
Every great man has a book written about him, and Hubert Humphrey is no exception. Tonight, we've invited his biographer to fill us in on some little-known facts about the senator that you'll be reading when the book is finally published. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the author of tomorrow's bestseller, HHH, Mr. Donald Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'm here tonight because I'm writing a book on the life of Senator Hubert Humphrey. A man who's been in politics for over 30 years and never been caught at it. In my research, I found out some facts about the senator that may astound you. Did you know that before he was a registered Democrat, that he was a registered pharmacist? That was back in the days when the miracle drug was Mercurochrome. I haven't put the book together yet, but here are some interesting comments he makes about his career behind the drug counter. As a young pharmacist, I've made a few mistakes, like giving the morning sickness bill to old Mr. Turner. And I had a hard time explaining to Mrs. Watson why she was taking male hormones. The last time I saw Mrs. Watson, she was in the church choir, singing bass. And here he talks about entering politics. He says, leaving the drugstore a few years later, I became the mayor of Minneapolis. It was after this election that I made the biggest decision of my life. I became a registered voter. Later, I decided to retire from politics, and I became vice president. In the book, I think you'll love his comments on the Senate hearings. He refers to them as the Sam Irving quiz show. When the contestants, quote, when the contestants give the right answer, they lose. This one you really love. He says, the whole thing is so ridiculous. The Republicans bugging the Democratic headquarters. That's like General Motors breaking into Ford to get the Edsel secrets. Senator, I just heard a rumor that the Democrats once tried to bug the Republican headquarters. And somebody stepped on the paper cup and broke their string.
There's a lot of your friends and admirers who couldn't be here tonight, but they've sent telegrams, and I'd like to read them to you now. The first one reads, Dear Senator Humphrey, more than anyone else, I regret you're losing the 1968 election. You can't imagine how I wish it was you who was in the White House, signed Richard Nixon. There's one from the American Society of Interior Decorators. Dear Senator, we hope you'll be elected to the White House in 1976. With your belief in the politics of joy, you always seem so happy, and that's what this country needs, a gay president. With us this evening is the most distinguished Republican from Connecticut, Senator Lowell Weicker. He's quite a guy. Every time a taxpayer in Connecticut is in trouble, they call him. And the senator is finally doing something about it. He's getting an unlisted phone. Ladies and gentlemen, with the greatest respect and admiration, here he is, Senator Lowell Weicker.
Now I'm turning the volume up on the flowers, please. Now, Dean, I want to thank you. I want to say that when you asked me to your show, I turned to Hubert Humphrey, and I asked him whether it would be a good thing for our reputations to appear on the Dean Martin show. Hubert turned to me and said, Lowell, given what most of the voters think of us these days, we're lucky Dean will appear with us. Now, we're all rugged individualists on this dais. Hubert once coined a phrase when he said he was his own man. And I try to be mine own man, and Dean Martin, of course, is his own drunk. You know, paying tribute to Hubert Humphrey is a lot like sticking cloves in an old ham. People ask what keeps an intelligent man in politics for so many years. Well, I know what's kept Hubert interested. Some of the babies he first kissed 20 years ago are beginning to shape up. And yes, as next pharmacist, Hubert would be the first to admit that through the miracle of modern medicine, he still kisses pretty young girls, and through the miracle of modern psychiatry, he means to find out why. For as Hubert confided to me, when you get to his age, your memory is the second thing to go. Forgive me, Muriel, I didn't write that thing. He's one of the few men in political life whose hair gets darker the older he gets. His opponents spread the word he was tinning his hair. And now I know what they mean when they say that Hubert Humphrey is dying to get into the White House. But optimism is a Humphrey trademark. Someone wants to find an optimist as a little old lady who starts to put her shoes on when Hubert Humphrey says, and in conclusion... And I must say that's true. Hubert is to public speaking what termites are to an old barn. Now, this next one comes strictly from me, Hubert, with all the wiretapping and bugging that goes on today. I think you're one of the few important national figures who seems to be immune. I mean, who's going to pay for the amount of tape that it would require to record one of your conversations? What I really like about Hubert is the tremendous interest he takes in people. I saw it just this afternoon as we were at the airport coming out here. He spent 2 hours talking to just one little old man. And all the guy did was to ask him, where's the men's room? Hubert had to respond by saying, well, now there are two sides to that question. You know, there are 535 members of the Congress. And they're not all perfect. Some are dynamic leaders. Some are rather mediocre. Some, quite frankly, don't measure up to the job at all. But let me tell you, that Hubert is, well, he's in there somewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Boy, he's about 6'12". Thank you, Senator. And now, Senator Humphrey, we're very pleased to have with us the man who managed your campaign for presidency in 1968. Your closest friend and political advisor, Mr. Foster Brooks.
Hi, Hubie. I still can't figure out how the heck we lost. The only way I can figure it out, it must have been simply bad timing. You just happened to be running for president the same day Nixon was. One day, either way, you would have been a shoe. Then instead of Tricky Dicky, we'd have had Hubie the Boo. Even as it was, it came pretty close. If one half of a person out of every 100 people who voted for Nixon had voted for him, for the senator, we would have won. That's all. Just one half a person. And if he voted for Nixon, you can guess which half the person it was. As Mr. Sinatra here just told you, to be one of the senator's closest friends. Whom do you think drank all the punch that Hubert says, please as? My friends, I taught him everything he knows about politics. Before I got a hold of him, he thought Henry Cabot Lodge was a motel. And that Barry Goldwater was a urologist. So I can assure you that Hubert Humphrey would have made a wonderful president just as he made a wonderful vice president. And did you know that he was the most active vice president we ever had? He used to get up at 6 o'clock every morning so he could run down and collect his unemployment insurance. And he is such a generous and compassionate man. When he heard that Watts was burning, he sent the inhabitants a whole truckload of marshmallows. And unlike other politicians, you never hear any stories about Humphrey and broads. I ought to know because I'm the one who paid them all off.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure for me to present our distinguished Man of the Week, one of the truly great figures on the American political scene, the Honorable Senator from the state of Minnesota, Senator Hubert Humphrey.
Thank you, Dean. First of all, I want to confess something tonight. For all these years, since 1968, I've been trying to fashion some kind of a rationale as to why we lost the election, other than the fact we didn't get enough votes.
Tonight I found out, and I want to tell you I enjoyed losing it, and I want to thank very much. In fact, you would have made a fine campaign manager. When Dean Martin invited me, I readily accepted. I wanted to find out the difference between Dean Martin and whiskey. And I just found out. Whiskey improves with age. And on my own, Dean, you do too. Dean, I'm going to let you in on a secret. For a long time, I've admired the ability that Dean Martin has and has demonstrated by surrounding himself with beautiful women. He undoubtedly could be called the Henry Kissinger of television, if you know what I mean. And I want to thank all the rest of you here, all of you here in the dais tonight, for making me feel at home tonight. In fact, I only wish I'd stayed there after what I heard. Now, we Democrats always like to come out to California. It's a state that has long been one of our primary concerns, so to speak. Now, take San Clemente. In fact, that's what they did. Seriously, I don't think that any public office holder has ever been so honored as I have this evening. That is, since the time the Roman Senate threw a surprise party for Julius Caesar. That was back there when Brutus was in charge of the dirty tricks department, as you recall. Just getting your most impressive invitation, Dean, was most exciting to me. It was, I'll let you in on it, what it was like. It was gilt-edged, and it had engraving on it, and it said, "You have been chosen for this tribute because you are a person of singular achievement, unique ability, and exceptional integrity." And it was addressed, "Occupant." And I want you to know that I don't really harbor any resentment or towards any of the people here on the dais, because you were merely vicious and tricky and vindictive. As our president would say, you were only being overzealous. And you were nice to include my good friend of the Senate, Senator Lowell Weicker. And I'll tell you why. Because he's had so little exposure, as you know, on television. By the way, the things he was saying here tonight are obviously fictitious. No reason to believe them at all. All this business about my long talk is only based on fact. I don't know why this fellow is trying to peddle this stuff. Senator Weicker, we all know, is a member of the Watergate Committee. And that's a committee, I might add, that has uncovered more phonies than a nudist camp in Hollywood. Personally, I want to keep this off from politics. I don't want it to be a partisan occasion in any way. I trust Republicans, and I really do. Back in 1972, they said, for example, that if I voted Democratic, inflation would run rampant, the dollar would lose its value, and our economy would be in chaos. And I voted Democratic, and they were absolutely right. Just last night, I was at a $100 a plate dinner here in Los Angeles, and it wasn't even a political function, as a matter of fact. It was just, tells you what it costs to eat out these days. Yes, when President Nixon said that he was going to make everything perfectly clear, we didn't know that he meant the supermarket shelves, did we? So, in appreciation of this sumptuous repast, Mr. Martin, and in eternal gratitude for having Hubert Humphrey to kick around some more, I want to leave you with 3 words. Separate checks, please, Dean. Thank you very much.
I always like the way Hubert Humphrey makes speeches. He just gets up and talks until he thinks he's got something to say. Everybody, on my way home, Captain. Now you warm up the hot chocolate.
The Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, coming to you from the MGM Grand Hotel in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beautiful Ziegfeld Room, tonight's star-studded roast has brought together some of the world's greatest entertainers. They've come from all over the world to be here tonight, here in Las Vegas, in person.
Your roastmaster, Dean Martin. And tonight's very special Man of the Week, Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, boy, tonight we honor one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Mr. Wilt Chamberlain. But before we begin, let us have a moment of silence for the stagehand who said to Wilt before the show, "You got business here, boy?" In 1936, Wilt Chamberlain came into this world. He was even tall at birth. He was so tall, he was born on August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. At an early age, his only interest in life was basketball, but he couldn't afford to buy one, so he used to go down to the schoolyard and dribble a white kid. Today, Wilt drives a gold Rolls Royce, but he's no fool. When he drives through Georgia, he changes places with his white chauffeur. Well, a lot of your friends and admirers couldn't be here tonight, but they sent telegrams. Even the owner of the Lakers sent you a wire. No telegram, just a wire. Norm Crosby is one comedian who takes show business seriously. He's dedicated, he's involved, he's committed. At least he should be. Ladies and gentlemen, my pal, a real funny guy, Mr. Norm Crosby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean.
Wilt Chamberlain is an insulation to young people all over the world. Wherever he appears, after every game, the kids give him a standing ovulation. That's the truth. He's always tall. Big deal. That's a joke. People People can overcome handicaps if they have drive and ambition. I knew a pickpocket once in Boston. This is the truth. Had only one finger. One finger Louis. He was a pickpocket. Can you imagine? And he did pretty good, too. Of course, all he ever stole were bagels and donuts. But Wilt can remember. All of us can. Grown-up guys. We never had the advantages in sports like the kids have today. We never had Little League with fancy uniforms and regulation ballparks. We played ball in a dirty, vacant lot where first base was a rock, second base was a garbage can cover, and third base was a wino who was always laying drunk in the grass. I heard he became a big singer. It's hard to believe when you look at a big guy like Wilt, but that whole body, truly, is only worth 98 cents. It's incredible, but it's true. A laboratory optician proved in a laboratory that the whole body, chemically distended, is only worth 98 cents. And that's why bigotry is such a joke. What difference does it make? Black, white, yellow, green, man or woman, nobody can possibly be better than anybody else. The whole body, 98 cents. 98 cents, a whole body. Some girls get more, you know. Well, good luck in San Diego. We're going to miss it.
Thank you, Lawrence. Besides being one of Wilt's closest friends, Happy Harrison is one of the reasons that the Lakers have such a great ball club. He's a tall one, too. He has to bend down every time he walks under McDonald's golden arches. Ladies and gentlemen, a superb athlete, Mr. Happy Harrison.
Thank you very much, Dean. You know, when you play on a team with a guy a number of years, as I have played with Wilt, you get to know him pretty well. And I get burned up when I hear things about Wilt. Things that I know for a fact are not true. For instance, you may have heard that on the court, Wilt is a very selfish player. Nonsense. He's the most generous basketball player I know. I never saw anyone give away as many championship games as Wilt. Some of the black millionaires criticize Wilt for not changing his name, like Muhammad Ali and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar have done. But they don't understand Wilt. It's not that Wilt Chamberlain isn't willing to change his name. It's just that there's only one name that he'd rather have, and that's already been taken. Bill Russell. Well, really, what I want to tell you, the Lakers won't be the same this year without you. I'm going to miss you, I know that's for sure. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking of changing my name from Happy to Ecstatic.
Thank you, Happy. There's a lady with us tonight who's going to review Wilt Chamberlain's new book in the Saturday Review of Literature, Miss Roberta Cush.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And good evening, lovers of good literature. And if there are any of you here tonight, what are nice people like you doing in a dump like this? I would like to review a new book. This is a book, Dean. You can tell this from the magazines that you read because there isn't any centerfold. Now, I usually review nonfiction novels of cultural significance. But when this book reached our office, there was such a clamor about who would get to review it that we had to draw straws. I lost. This is called Wilt, just like any other 7-foot black millionaire who lives next door. It's the kind of book that you just can't put down until you finish the title. It is listed as an autobiography of Wilt Chamberlain as told to David Shore. Or to put it in your language, Dean, David Shore is the bookor and Wilt Chamberlain is the bookee. Now, first, let's discuss what the book is about. It's about $6.95. Batteries not included, of course. It is shockingly antisocial. It takes Wilt Chamberlain 310 pages to say what Dean Martin can say with a single Italian hand gesture. But you know, out here in California, it's going just like wildfire. Everybody's burning it. I want you to hear the first chapter. See Wilt run. Run, Wilt, run. Run, run, run. They don't write them like that anymore. Now, sports writers have called Wilt Chamberlain a whiner because he alibis so much. He alibis about losing. He alibis about fighting with teammates. He alibis about voting for Nixon. Well, what this book really is an alibiography. And it also tells us how he can palm a basketball in each hand. And it also tells us why he's so popular with Raquel Welch.
Yeah!
As a matter of fact, this book tells us really a lot more than we care to know about Wilt Chamberlain. Somewhere in the last chapter, Wilt, with characteristic modesty, reveals that he doesn't care whether anybody likes this book or not, because he has lots of other irons in the fire. Wilt, I suggest that you put this book with the other irons.
That was Audrey Meadows. Thank you, Audrey. Ladies and gentlemen, a fine talent and a real pro, Mr. Ken Berry.
Thank you, Dean. I'm here tonight as a basketball fan, and I have been a fan ever since I was knee-high to Wilt Chamberlain. Which was day before yesterday. Some things never change. When they're trying to choose the greatest sports figure of all time, my vote goes to Wilt Chamberlain. Of course, I also voted for McGovern. Goldwater and Al Flanders and all those guys. This time I think I've really got a winner, and I resent some of the scurrilous things they've been saying about this amazingly gifted, colossal klutz. Is he coming after me yet? Tonight, I would like to put the lie to some of these rumors. They say that Wilt exaggerates his success with the ladies. Well, what does it take to be successful with the ladies, really? Only that a man be tall, dark, and handsome. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. They say he's extravagant with his money because he has 4 different limousines. The fact is, he needs 4 cars, 1 for each direction. Well, why does he need such big cars, like Rolls Royces and Bentleys? Well, they're the only cars with glove compartments big enough for his watermelons. Oh, talk about your good times, huh, Will? His best shot is the hook. Ask any of the great hookers. And they'll also tell you about Wilt's wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, slam dunk. But if I do nothing else here tonight, And I'm sure many of you are hoping that I do nothing else here tonight. I want to set the record straight on one thing. It was not Wilt Chamberlain who sold out to Adolf Hitler. It was Neville Chamberlain. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ken. Tonight we are very pleased to have with us one of the most respected officials in the NBA. He was the first black man to become professional basketball referee. Would you all please welcome Mr. Rudolph Mendy.
As he told you, I was the first black referee. Of course, that was not because they thought I had such knowledge of sports. It's because they wanted to save money. You think this is a shirt? No, I just painted the white stripes on my body. They said that they were afraid that I would favor the black players in my officiating. Not so. I would never discriminate against a white basketball player. I know what it is to be a minority. There is no difference between black referees and white referees except this one. In addition to this signal, which means jump ball, and this signal, which means foul, we have this signal, which means you out of the game, white boy. I say that there are some players who try to intimidate referees. Not Wilt. I've had the occasion to witness how polite and what gentlemanly conduct he can have. He came up to me, he said, "Referee, I'd like to suggest that your perception of my involvement in that imbroglio was somewhat faulty." I said, "You're right, Wilt. As a matter of fact, I think I reversed my decision." He said, "Thank you, sir." And with that, he released my ears and dropped me to the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's a man who's broken more records than any other jockey in the history of racing, Mr. Bill Schumacher.
You know, there's something I'm going to reveal tonight that to the public for the first time. Wilt Chamberlain and I are identical twins. When we were only 6 months old, Gypsy stole my brother Wilt from our baby carriage. And even though we were separated, we grew up with identical tastes. It's like the Corsican brothers. We both grew up to be riders. I ride horses, he rides referees. When I go out for a race, I wear green boots, a broad yellow sash, a scarlet tunic with a fluffy ascot, and a checkered cap with a pom-pom on top. That's the way Wilt dresses when he goes out on a date. Well, stand up and let me shake your hand. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Vernon Scott writes for every big newspaper and magazine in the country. He writes for them, but they never send him any. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the finest journalists in America, United Press reporter, Vernon Scott.
Jim Murray of the Los Angeles Times described Wilt legitimately as fickle, arrogant, lazy, irascible, demanding, petulant, mercenary, and unappreciative. But in defense of Wilt, I must say, he also has his faults. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to hand it to Wilt Chamberlain. Because, as his coach will tell you, if you pass it to him, he'll drop it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most respected actor, Mr. George Kennedy.
Thank you, Dean. As every basketball fan knows, Wilt Chamberlain is a 7 foot 1.5 inches tall in his stocking feet, or 7 foot 1.25 inches tall without his pantyhose. People should really try to be more sensitive and understanding of Wilt's situation. They should be more considerate of his feelings. It's not easy being a gangling freak. First of all, it's almost impossible to buy clothes. He can't even find knee pads that fit him. He has to find a 44D cup and cut it in two. The world doesn't present many opportunities to a man who's 7 feet tall and black. I mean, what choice did Wilt have? He could either become a basketball player or an exclamation point on a billboard. And on top of all of this, he has to put up with endless jibes and ridicule. Why do we make fun of a tall man? I asked a psychiatrist friend of mine, and he told me because deep down we're afraid that the tall man is sexually superior. But I find that hard to understand. I mean, if Wilt makes love like he shoots free throws, we ain't got nothing to worry about.
Thank you, George. Jackie Gale is a comedian who just returned from a 20-city tour of the United States to apologize for his last appearance on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, a comedian who's moving up fast, Mr. Jackie Gale.
I'm still working on a watermelon in the glove compartment. And it's an honor to be here for Mr. Chamberlain, because he comes from a very illustrious family. I remember his uncle when he was Prime Minister of England. He's a wonderful man. And why should anybody want to roast him these days? Who has he offended lately? That's right. Just remember the good days when you sung 2 free throws in a row. And they sent the ball out for drug analysis. I'd like to say... And a lot of people here roasting him. Bill Shoemaker. How could you roast this man? Wasn't he the one that told the witch doctor to shrink you? And when things were rough, he let you sleep in his glove. But I'll say one thing for you. You got a great riding technique. All you do is whisper in the horse's ear, glue factory, glue factory. I see Ken Berry here from F Troop. He had Mayberry RFD. That's right, the all-American boy, Ken Berry. I love him. If you put a slot on the side of me, become a ride at Disneyland. That's a good line. You think about it, it sneaks up. That's those sneak lines. And George Kennedy, who lost his TV series. A lot of guys that lose their series. This must be show's a rest home for cancellations. But I gotta give you this. George, I loved you in Cool Hand Luke. I love that name, Cool Hand Luke. It sounds like a frozen Chinese dinner. But you know, George did win an Academy Award. Big deal. So did Louise Rayner. And where is she now? An Avon lady in Vienna. And I noticed this stuff is good. It may get me another shot. And I noticed that George, your hair's getting a little white. That happened while he was filming Airport, when he found out Dean was the pilot. And I'll tell you something. That would have bleached Nipsey Russell. Nipsey, you look a little familiar. You look like a jockey out on the lawn in front of Wilt's house. Happy Hairskin, the only teammate they could dig up to show up for him. And Happy had an offer from the other league, too, from the Bakersfield Bumblebees. He was offered $30 a game and a box lunch. But he's holding out for 40 and some ham hocks. And Norm Crosby's on the show, and I've known you a long time, and I still can't figure out how you made it. But I worked a lot of small towns with Norm, and it's really true. We worked a lot of those towns where women wear the kind of dresses you can see through and you don't want to. That's right. We played towns where the cab driver wanted you to fix him up with a broad. That's right. Yeah, laugh if you wanna. We worked those towns. I'll tell you how small they were. The head of the mafia was a Filipino. That's right. That's right. You people know what loneliness is. Go to a town when an all-night diner closes 2 in the afternoon. They think Lawrence Welk's a jazz musician. But I'm proud to be here honoring Milt today because he scored more than anybody else on pro basketball. And he's done well on the court, too. And remember the words of a great basketball sage who said, the bigger they are, the more money they make. I like to wish him a lot of luck, Wilt, because you are the greatest. And I say you do wish you this luck because with your personality, you're going to need it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. You're always good. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to present our man of the week, 7 feet full of basketball greatness, Mr. Wilt Chamberlain.
Thank you, Dean, and good evening. Standing here, I can't help thinking, but civil rights has come a long, long way. 20 years ago, a guy like me wouldn't be allowed to sit today as guys like you. Those were the good old days. It's nice to see my old friend, William Shoemaker. You know, Bill wasn't always that short. But when his former wife divorced him, she took his legs as custody. And Bill, I think that's actually something that belonged to your ex-wife. In your last race, I saw you riding side saddle. And Ken Berry, I'm glad you were here. I used to watch your show, Mayberry RFD. After the show, I want to meet you in the parking lot. And find out why there was no Black Spring on your show. Mr. George Kennedy, thanks for being here tonight, too. I saw you on that movie made for television, The Great American Tragedy. Wow, it sure lived up to its title. And Dean, I'm really, really proud. You came a long, long way. I remember when you were standing in front of the pool hall in Steubenville, Ohio, saying, psst, hey, want a girl? But before I close, I just want to say I've been accused of enjoying life. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I admit that drinking and swinging really isn't all happiness. It's the closest thing I can think of to it. Good night, everybody.
Well, I'd like to finish up by repeating the advice given to you by your Laker coach, Bill Sharman, who said, Wilt, take this basketball and stuff it. Now, everybody, on the way home, Catherine, now warm up the hot chocolate.
Martin Celebrity Roast, coming to you from the MGM Grand Hotel in the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beautiful Ziegfeld Room, tonight's star-studded roast has brought together some of the world's greatest entertainers. They've come from all over the world to be here tonight, here in Las Vegas, in person.
Your roastmaster, Dean Martin. And tonight's very special Man of the Week, Senator Barry Goldwater.
Sit down, my dear senators. Sit down. Well, tonight we're gathered here to pay tribute to a great Republican senator from the state of Arizona. I feel kind of funny standing here to the right of Goldwater. I didn't think anybody could be to the right of Goldwater. The senator is truly a great American. He's so patriotic. On the 4th of July, he hangs Johnny Mann out the window. He's so loyal to our country, when he goes to a Chinese restaurant, he orders American food. As you know, the senator is a great supporter of President Nixon. Nixon would have been here, but he's being roasted himself right now. As senator of Arizona, he's loved by all the people, especially the Indians. Whenever he visits an Indian reservation, all the Indians call him the Great White Father. And 2 of the squaws actually proved it in court. And there's also his war record. When World War II broke out, he spent all of the war years begging and pleading to be shipped overseas. Unfortunately, he was in Germany at the time. After the war, he went to work in Goldwater's department store in Arizona, which was owned by his grandfather. He started out as a window dresser, where every day he worked with dummies. From there, it was just a short step to politics. Senator, a lot of people who wanted to be here tonight couldn't, but they sent telegrams. You were also remembered by the Arizona Indians. They sent an obscene smoke signal, but that... I'd like to read some of the wires. The first one comes from Senator George McGovern. Dear Barry, I think you and I should join forces. Let's have a national convention of all the people who voted for you in '64 and all the people who voted for me in '72. We can hold it in my Volkswagen. Here's one from Mr. and Mrs. Glenn Mocklet, the people you saved from drowning a few weeks ago. Dear Senator Goldwater, we sure were lucky that you were around to give us mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Who else but a politician would have had so much hot air? I don't know. And finally, here's one from the Ace Brazier Company. Dear Senator, we are introducing a new line and have decided to call it the Barry Goldwater Bra. It's for women who lean to the right. And even though critics agree that Bill Conrad's talents make Cannon a hit show, success never went to Bill's head. It went to his stomach. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Conrad.
Thank you very much, Dean. I'm here tonight to pay tribute to a fellow flyer, Major General Barry Goldwater. Retired U.S. Air Force. We both won our pilot's wings at Luke Field, Phoenix, Arizona. We both served in World War II. And at that time, Barry Goldwater was on our side.
But even then, I knew that you would go far, Senator. Go far in the service because you studied humility under General MacArthur and took charm lessons from General Patton. As a bomber pilot, General Goldwater single-handedly laid waste to 11 major cities. And then he went overseas. I remember after one mission, Barry came back with his plane heavily damaged and started to land with his wheels up. The tower got on an emergency frequency and said, "Goldwater, you're landing with your wheels up. If you can hear me, waggle your wings." And Barry replied, "I'm landing anyway because I'm out of gas. If you can hear me, waggle your tower." Luckily, I happened to be there with a pocket knife, and I was able to extract some of the shrapnel from General Goldwater. It was the first time I've ever been thanked for getting the lead out of my brass. But that's all behind him now. General, I salute you.
Mr. Norm Crosby.
Thank you, Dean. Today, as you all know, we honor Senator Barry Goldwater, a man of great repute, a man of depth, a man of perversion, statesman, politician, and former head of the largest department store in Phoenix, Arizona, and that is a great story. He began in the shipping room, sweeping floors. This is the truth. And just 18 months after starting with the company, he was named chairman of the board at the incredible age of 16. It was astounding. This is the truth. Amazing. And when the retiring president gave him the keys to the executive suite, young Barry, tears streaming from his pupil, rose and stood up in a voice quivering with emotion and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." From then on, his rise to fame was vitriolic. Many years later, when President Johnson declared war on puberty, it was Senator Goldwater who said, and I quote, "Wherever there is unemployment, you'll find men out of work." He's a genius. He's always been for the little man, for the underdeveloped people in backward countries, countries where they've never even learned to read. But now, thanks to his legislation, we are sending them books. And that's conservative thinking. We send books to people who can't even read. It was Senator Goldwater himself who warned his party years ago that if they kept raising liquor and automobile taxes, they would lose the drunken driver vote. Senator Goldwater has one hero, Christopher Columbus, who he thinks would have made a fantastic politician. Because when Columbus started out, he did not know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. When he returned, he didn't know where he'd been. And he did the whole thing on somebody else's money. Thank you. In confusion, let us remember the words of this great American who once said, "If you don't pitch in and do your part, and we in Washington don't pitch in and do our part, then pretty soon none of us will have a part to pitch in."
Now, from the Democratic side of the Goldwater family, here is Senator Goldwater's nephew, the sheriff of Half-Staff, Arizona, Bubba Lee Goldwater.
Yeah, much obliged to you, Mr. Knight. One of my favorites. Uncle Barry? Been a long time, hasn't it? Does everybody in the family still have to call you Mr. President? Makes me surprised to see me, Uncle Barry. Seeing as how you wanted to have me committed. Being a Democrat. Look at all, boy, I'm thrilled. I tell you, all these famous people come to honor you. None of them know you. Yeah. None of them voted for you. Dean never votes at all. He only leaves the house on Fridays. Remember when you told me, Bubba Lee?
I thought he said Charlie did.
William Holden just said something. He said, you see me in Picnic? Said Bubba Lee, follow in my footsteps. And I said, Uncle Barry, I want to win. I'll tell you something, Uncle Barry. When the history of America is written, you're lucky if you're a footnote.
That was Steve Landsberg. Sheriff, I got some bad news for you. You better get out of the parking lot. Your horse just molested a Mustang out there. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Carroll O'Connor.
Thank you very much. I'll tell you why I'm here tonight. They needed a token liberal. Even though the senator is a conservative Republican, let's take time out to consider all the progressive things he's done for us liberals. That's long enough. Time in. Barry Goldwater is the senior senator of Arizona. And believe me, it's not easy representing 100,000 square miles of kitty litter. Barry always wanted to run for president in the worst way. And in 1964, he did that. That was the year when he was bragging that he wasn't a politician. The election returns, bore him out. Thank you very much and good night. Good night, Senator.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bill Holden.
Thank you, Dean. It's a pleasure for me to be here tonight and pay homage to Barry Goldwater, in my estimation, one of the greatest politicians in America today. But as we're learning lately, what a politician says and what he means are two different things. Just for example, I have here a copy of a campaign speech that Barry made in 1964. And he said, "Thank you, my fellow Americans. It's really a thrill for me to be here in the great city of Butte, in the great state of Montana. Now, that's just two lies already. Well, I ask you, how could anybody be thrilled to be in Butte, Montana? I spent an evening in Butte, Montana, and the big night is to go down to the corner gas station and watch them load the cigarette machine. Then on Saturday, if you're lucky, you can watch hair grow. But let's go on. He says, I come to you tonight not as a presidential candidate. Now, translated, what that means is, see if you still got your wallet. But if I were president, we would not be fighting in Vietnam. That's right. You know, something, if you'd been elected president, we'd be fighting in China, Russia, France. He said, I will remove pornography from the streets of America and put it where it belongs. At home in his den. Seriously, Senator Goldwater, I am delighted and happy, and this is a very proud evening for me.
Every night, some of the most important members of our political society gather at a nightclub in the Shoreham Hotel to laugh and listen to the sharp, biting political satirist I'm about to introduce. Nobody takes offense at Mark because he carries on in the tradition of Will Rogers, Russell Baker, and Art Balkwald. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Russell.
Thank you, Dean. It's a privilege to be here in honor of the distinguished senator. You know, recalling the campaign of 1964, Barry Goldwater ran as a conservative's conservative. Compared to him, Calvin Coolidge was an acid freak. As a conservative, Mr. Goldwater has been quoted as saying, when asked what he would do in case of an enemy attack, I'd put the wagons in a circle. No, he didn't say that at all. That's just simply hearsay and innuendo. What he did say was, I'd tell the bugler to sound a charge, and I'd get word to General Custer immediately. Isn't that right? Born in Arizona Territory, his father was Jewish and his mother Protestant. This heritage was evident years after, when he voted to send half a jet to Israel. If he had been a full Jew, Arizona will have been irrigated by now. The thing I really admire most about you, Senator Goldwater, is the way you can look a man in the eye and tell him flat out how you think that the country should be run. And how you can keep a straight face when you're doing it.
Thank you, Mark Russell. Miss Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Thank you, Dean. I can never figure out how Barry Goldwater got away from me. After all, he's handsome, intelligent, and also rich. Barry was very special in my life. Only in America could a humble Hungarian girl like me meet and fall in love with a wealthy department store owner. But politics makes strange bedfellows. I'll never forget our first dinner date. I'm not going to say what happened, but Barry, dear, how can they call you a conservative? Thank you, darling.
Thank you, Zsa. Here's a gentleman who knew Senator Goldwater 30 years ago when they both served together on the same plane during World War II. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Staff Sergeant Donald Rice of the United States Air Force. When I first met Senator Goldwater, he was wearing a flight suit, a helmet, oxygen mask. At the time, it was a little ridiculous. He was riding a horse. He loved his country, and he wanted to fly. His patriotism was so strong that sometimes you got the feeling that if he were ever a flagpole sitter and the president died, he'd come down halfway. I must admit that he was fearless. I remember one time on a mission over China, he was away from the controls, tightening a loose hydraulic connection, when he spotted an engine on fire. He turned to the co-pilot's controls and calmly tapped him on the shoulder with a wrench he had in his hand. Saying we're on fire. And the co-pilot landed the plane safely in spite of a broken shoulder. Colonel Goldwater faced many dangers, and he never took off on a mission without first taking out a $2 insurance policy. Each time naming a different girl as beneficiary. He used to get a lot of mileage out of $2. But Senator, I've always had tremendous admiration for you, and I never knew how much the people in Arizona really loved you until last week in Phoenix. I checked into a motel and found that the Gideon Bible had been replaced by your book, Conscience of a Conservative. Don't we all know Dan Rowan as half of the comedy team of Rowan and Martin? His ability as an actor has been compared to Cary Grant's, and Dan always suffers in the comparison. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Rowan.
The senator's cousin, Bubba Lee, said that nobody on the dais knows Senator Goldwater, and none of us voted for him. And I'd just like to contradict at least part of that, because I've known Barry Goldwater for many years. As a matter of fact, well, it's a secret polling booth we have over here, see? Now, I met Senator one day in the White House mess, which is just down the hall from where they eat. And
it's called Congress.
I'm really very happy to be here with the Senator on such a happy occasion, because I happen to know that Barry is celebrating tonight. He just found out that one of his phone calls with President Nixon has been nominated for a Grammy. Barry Goldwater is probably one of the most popular men in the Senate, and for one very good reason. He is one of the few men in the United States Senate that will give you a direct answer to a direct question. Now, that's a fact. You come up to the Senator. Yes, sir. He'll tell you. Right on. You ask Senator Goldwater what time it is. He looks at his watch and he'll say 2:30. It may be 8 o'clock, but he'll tell you 2:30. I guess that Barry's family background's no secret. He came from a long line of Germans, but in the first term, so did President Nixon. The original family name was Goldwasser, but Barry had it changed, and you can understand that. I certainly can. How would it sound? If the president's looking for me, I'll be over at the Wasser Gate. I mean, you know. So tell him not to bug me. It's no secret that the president's been going around the country, and he's been saying that the president should release the tapes. And I think it's a great idea to release the tapes. You know? As a matter of fact, if he releases those tapes, you can make a wonderful television series out of them. You could call it Lots of Luck. Great pleasure to be here, Senator. Really honor.
Thank you, Dan Rowan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's our man of the week. Distinguished Senator from the state of Arizona, Senator Barry Goldwater.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate your honoring me tonight, even though we're of different political philosophies. You see, I'm a conservative drinker, and you're a liberal drunk. Now, some people are in disagreement about what I stand for. After tonight, you can see I stand for a lot. And Dean can't stand at all. And then there's Dan Rowan, who usually works with Dick Martin. You'll notice he doesn't work so well by himself. But Dan, I want to predict that someday you'll be as well known as my ex-comedy partner, Bill Miller. And speaking of forgotten men named Bill, brings us to Bill Holden, the actor who runs a game preserve in Africa. Bill, I've always said that as an actor, you were one of the gamiest. And Jaja, thanks for joining us, both of you. Norm Crosby as much as I'd like to. Norm, who is to comedy what surfing is to the economy of Arizona. It would be impossible to skip over Bill Conrad. It's hard enough just... It's hard enough just to walk around him. And it is especially nice of Carol O'Connor to be here tonight. As you all know, Carol is a Democrat, which is one of the main reasons I'm proud to be a Republican. You know, listening to this group, I don't know why they say there's a gas shortage. I'm here tonight as a living proof that not every American boy can grow up to be president. But I've always been a good loser. Perhaps not as good as George McGovern. In fact, I've been accused of being sympathetic to wealthy taxpayers. Well, after this administration, there won't be any wealthy taxpayers. The people who voted Republican have no beef coming. And I might say that the worst thing about inflation is that it comes at a very bad time, just when the prices are so high. But really, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here tonight. And in return, I ask you all to come visit me in Arizona. Just let me know when you're coming. Because in the words of the song, by the time you get to Phoenix, I'll be leaving.
Well, that's our show for tonight. I want to thank all my wonderful guests for being here tonight. In particular, I want to thank Senator Barry Goldwater for being such a good sport. A lot of people make fun of Barry for being a hawk. Personally, I don't care whether a politician is a hawk or a dove. I just wish we could get rid of some of the turkeys. Good night, everybody. I'm on the way home, Captain. Warm up the hot chocolate.